Joining me now on the road to the most stupendous two-night WrestleMania at AT&T Stadium in April, we have the most beautiful woman in WWE, Carmella, and the man Pat McAfee calls is one of the coolest humans walking the planet. But perhaps more importantly, the birthday boy, Corey
Woo!
Graves.
Oh, thank you so
Happy
much.
birthday.
I want to actually start by complimenting you on your ability to deliver the line of the most stupendous WrestleMania. You've clearly done your homework. I appreciate that because that's been burned into my brain. I actually see that in my sleep now.
Yeah, ever since I heard it for the very first time, it stuck because it is very memorable. I will give them credit for that the first time you hear it. But let's jump right into it. Corey and Carmella, new WWE YouTube series debuting Monday, February 28th. Are you guys just not busy enough, or what are we doing?
I found myself sleeping anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a night, and I figured that was way too much. So we might as well put another project in the works.
No, we're excited. I mean, this is something that came through because of our podcast. We have a podcast called Bear With Us, which is basically a relationship podcast, us just sort of shedding light on relationship issues and problems, things that we feel like we go through. And if like we're going through it, then we feel like other couples have to be going through it. And we just kind of are ourselves on that podcast. And it's now catapulted into a reality show where we just get to be more of ourselves. And I'm really excited for everyone to get to know the real Corey and Carmella, not just what you see on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, when we started the Bear With Us podcast, we never in a million years envisioned that it would evolve into a reality show, and not to mention have WWE behind the whole thing now. So it's been a long process, but it's been worthwhile, and it's been a lot of fun because WWE is awesome, but it's a grind. It's a grueling lifestyle. We're always on the road. You've got all these 25,000 things happening at any given time. So our podcast was more of an outlet for both of us in a creative capacity, and it had nothing to do with WWE. And we didn't use our WWE names on it.
We didn't talk about work.
Nowhere would you find it. We wouldn't answer questions about who Carmella wants to wrestle against next or anything like that. And we found that it got some pretty cool traction, and now we're really excited to bring that aspect of our lives to the forefront under the WWE banner, as opposed to just kind of our own little corner of the universe.
Has the advice from Miz and Maurice just started flowing through yet? It's just how to live your life with a camera in front of you all the time.
Well, I did 2 seasons of Total Divas, right? So I feel like I learned a lot from that experience. Watching it back, sometimes I'm like cringing. I'm like, who is that? Why am I acting that way? Because I felt like, okay, I have to say this or I have to be like that. And I really tried to take my experience with Total Divas and not do any of the things I did on Total Divas on this reality show because this is just us. It's us being us, not putting on an act, not we got to have total creative control and freedom. And to us, that was so important to maintain the authenticity that we had with our podcast and bring that to the show. So it is definitely going to be a lot different than what you see on Ms. and Mrs., Total Bellas, Total Divas. This is just real, raw us.
And that said, Miz actually has been very supportive since we first told him about it a few weeks back. He's been giving us pointers just as far as ways to promote it and ways to keep it relevant. I mean, Miz is really, really well educated when it comes to that sort of thing. There's a reason he's been on top and in the public eye for as long as he has. And he's been very, very forthcoming and giving us suggestions and advice and offering to help if we need anything. So Miz has actually been really, really cool for this whole process.
And back into the land of wrestling, we are on the road to WrestleMania. It is returning to AT&T Stadium. This time in 2016, did my research. I remember Corey Graves was a pre-show panel commentator. He's now on the main show on Raw. I remember watching Carmella wrestle at WrestleMania Access that year. She's now one half. She's now one half of the women's tag team champions. What are you guys hoping for? What are you guys hoping to accomplish? What are you guys looking forward to most about the next 6 or so weeks?
Well, that's a great question. I would love to be able to either defend our championships or be involved in any capacity. I feel like I've never really had a high profile feud or story going into WrestleMania. So that would be amazing. But honestly, what I'm looking forward to the most is just that week leading up to WrestleMania, being there with the fans. And now, especially that the world seems to be getting back to normal a little bit and we can hopefully have access again and do our meet and greets and all of our appearances and just get back with the WWE universe. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I would have to echo those sentiments. Last year was great when we were in Tampa Bay and had the 2 nights, and the audience being back was unbelievable. But now we're going to fill it. Now we're going to get to do it properly in Dallas, Texas, AT&T Stadium. And it's just exciting for me now. You mentioned 2016, I was doing pre-show panels. Now I've become, one of the voices of Monday Night Raw.
The voice.
And we've got 2 nights worth of action. And people have talked for years about, wouldn't it be cool if WrestleMania was bigger? Because I called a WrestleMania, I think it was last time we were in Dallas. It was about 7 hours straight. And I called every match. They rotated everybody else, but I was doing Raw and SmackDown at the time. So I'm excited now. I'm really comfortable in my role behind the desk, and I feel as though, given the opportunity and the right scenario, I can enhance things, just provide a great soundtrack, because WrestleMania is cool in that the stories have been told. Now it's time for the blow off, so to speak, where you have the matches and you're going to have epic showdowns and epic moments, and to just be able to be a fan again from the desk, from ringside. That's what I look forward to most, because Raw is hectic. There's a lot of traffic going on. There's ads, there's packages you have to throw to. WrestleMania, or most of the premium live events, but WrestleMania in particular, is, I don't want to say easy to call, but it's fun because you just get lost in it. I get to sit down, and despite me being Corey Graves' color commentator, 15-year-old me gets to come out and lend that fandom to where I'm at in life.
And speaking of Corey Graves, the color commentator, reports about 6 weeks ago came out that Corey Graves, the wrestler, may or may not be eligible to return to an in-ring capacity in some form.
I would just say that when that news broke 6 or so weeks ago, they were only like 6 or so months late. but yeah, I got myself medically cleared. It was something I did on my own, more or less for my own sanity, because since I got shut down, which is actually the day before WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans, it's been that long. That was the last time I was in a match. And I've just always wondered, it's eaten at me. What could you have done? And I've grown into this role as a commentator, and I'm not fooling myself. I'm not going to be a full-time competitor again. I have no interest in that. But if the need calls for it, or the opportunity arises for me to do a one-off here and there, or like a Jerry Lawler sort of spot where you get in and have an angle for a few weeks and maybe a match here or there, something I'd definitely be interested in discussing. But as far as actual tangible plans, there's nothing in the works right now, at least that I know of.
Still got to go get that 24/7 title back.
I always wanted to be Intercontinental Champion. I mean, I don't know if I'm willing to put in the work these days to get to that point, but that was always my goal.
And then as far as Carmella's career, I took some notes that I would like to run through. We have current tag team champion, former 2-time Miss Money in the Bank, former SmackDown Women's Champion, former 24/7 champion, being part of some of the most electric kind of groups during your time in NXT, getting a big run with R-Truth and being on TV every week doing that. Now your thing with Zelina. Do you look back on the last 6 years and ever just kind of smell the roses and just be like, wow, I've like made a mark in not that long of an amount of time?
I think that's something I need to do more often. I think I'm always worrying about what's next. I want to do something bigger, something better. I have to stop sometimes and remind myself, holy crap, I've made some history here. I was part of this women's evolution, and I never was supposed to make it to the point I'm at. I was the last draft pick in 2016. I was an afterthought. And to me, that lit a flame under me to be like, no, okay, I'll show you guys an afterthought. And I went on to make some history, and everything that I've been given, I take and I run with it. They put me with James Ellsworth. Great. Let's make it mean something. You want to throw me with R-Truth? Great. Let's make it mean something. No matter what it is that I'm given, I always take and I make it. And I'm proud of that.
That's kind of why I asked her out. I was really bored, and I was like, well, she always seems to make things succeed. So maybe if I can hitch my wagon to the Carmella train.
You're stupid.
And when WWE did go back on the road, it was in Texas. How was the experience of those shows, those first few shows? Because it was Houston and then a couple of shows here in Dallas with the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Speaking of Money in the Bank, how was just the feelings of getting back in front of the fans?
That was the coolest feeling. I had a championship match that night against Bianca, and I'll never forget being in the ring. I made my entrance first. Her music hit because she had never been in front of a live crowd and on the main roster. And her music hit, and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl, we all knew she was a star, but this girl is a mega star. And I felt like this is going to be the most fun match I've ever had in my career, because it makes my job way easy when they love her. Just make them hate me as much as I possibly can. And we went out there, had a hell of a match. And I'll never forget that night, just being back in front of that live audience. I mean, oh, it meant everything.
It actually makes my job much easier having a live crowd there, particularly when they want to play. We were in Columbia, South Carolina this past Monday for Raw, and from 8 p.m. until we went off the air, that crowd was live and electric, and it had been, I guess, 6 years since we had a show there. And they were rabid, and it just makes everything so much more fun. It makes the guys and girls in the ring work a little harder. It gives me a reason to shut up, because there's nothing that I can say that 10,000 people chanting, there's nothing that I can outdo them with. So let them tell the world what they need to know. You know what I'm saying? So there was a missing piece in the WWE universe for a long time. And not having fans there, we got used to it. We learned to adapt to, the whole pandemic era and then the Thunderdome. But there's absolutely nothing that compares to having a live rocking crowd who wants to have fun and is there to just be themselves.
Then with the addition of having the fans back, the Raw commentary table itself has been kind of a revolving door over the last year, a lot of moving pieces. How has the current group, you, Jimmy, and Byron, how have you guys sort of developed together now that you've been running the ship for a little bit?
Jimmy was put in a pretty tough spot, as the same could be said for Adnan Virk, who preceded him. I don't know if I would have ever survived and made it to this point if I had to do my on the job training live on the air. It's tricky, especially coming from an outside world. Adnan came from baseball, Jimmy came from MMA. But we do our best to develop chemistry. I've been riding in cars from town to town when available with Jimmy, just to chat, just to kind of get to know each other. And it takes time to develop chemistry, especially with our job. And Michael Cole and I have worked together so long and so many times that we can finish each other's sentences effortlessly. We don't even have to think, or I know exactly where he's going, or if I stumble over my words, he knows where I wanted to go. And that takes time, sometimes years to develop. And it's still a work in progress with Jimmy and having Byron there. Byron is always just reliable. Byron is always there if you need something. He's a fail-safe, and I mean that in the best possible way. Byron is just kind of you can count on him to be where he needs to be and to say what needs to be said. And it's all a work in progress, man. And Jimmy's still learning, and I'm learning. I've had to carry more weight than I'm used to. I'm ordinarily a color guy. I make jokes and tell stories, and I find myself doing more of the traffic and throwing to packages and a lot of things to sort of help Jimmy ease into this new role. So I think it's really forced all of us to step our game up, me in particular. And I've now gotten comfortable. I covered SmackDown 2 weeks ago, and there were 2 or 3 times where I was by myself at the commentary desk. And I thought to myself in hindsight, I was just by myself at the SmackDown desk on Fox for way more time than I had any business being. But it's cool to me that I've grown into that role, and I'm trusted to be able to handle business as needed.
Speaking of people who just don't work nearly enough at all, Pat McAfee did have to take 2 weeks off, I guess.
Yeah. Idiot had to go to Hawaii to recharge his batteries. I love Pat, man. Pat's been a friend of mine since long before his arrival in WWE. He actually grew up in the town next to me here in Pittsburgh, like neighboring towns. I think we did the math one day. I think his house was like 3 miles from my parents' house.
Wow.
We were that close together, and who would have thought? Now we're both filling the same seat, on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah, it's a couple more things for you guys. Heading into WrestleMania, if you had to convince somebody who had never seen wrestling before, but you picked a WrestleMania match to show somebody, whether it's one of your matches or whether it's any match in the history of ever, what would be your WrestleMania match to show someone to get them into wrestling? I can start with mine. I'll start with mine if that helps, just to give you guys a little bit of time, because I've done it. It's worked twice for me already. It's Shawn Michaels Undertaker at 25.
Okay.
Yeah,
you won't get any argument from me. I am showing it to somebody who is not familiar with the world of sports entertainment. I like to take it extremely basic, and I would go Hogan Andre from WrestleMania 3, just because you could put that thing on mute and understand what's happening, because visually it is a giant versus Hulk Hogan, and who can't relate to David versus Goliath. But seeing 93,000 people losing their minds with the body slam, and I'm sure there are probably better examples. I completely agree with you, but for me, that would be what I'd show them.
I don't know. I feel like there's just so many to choose from. Taker and Shawn Michaels is a great one. I'm just gonna go with that. I I watched that ad nauseum and we were in NXT in that match over and over and over. It's just such good storytelling.
Or Hogan versus The Rock. That this day and age might be the best because of WrestleMania 18, especially just the status that The Rock has achieved in the world right now, the world of entertainment. Hey, you know that guy from that movie you like? Here's him. Oh, you remember Hulk Hogan, right? Yep, here they are. And same thing, Toronto, those people were on their feet. They were rabid. And that moment, that shot will live forever before the opening bell with the two of them staring at each other and then just looking at the crowd because of everything they'd accomplished. That is the pinnacle of the business right there. And if you can't watch that and understand why people love what we do, you just won't ever understand it.
And now we'll get it with you guys. Hey, you know those two guys from that YouTube series, that guy and that girl? Yeah. This is what they actually do. This is what they actually do.
Hey, that's the plan, right?
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys taking a couple minutes to talk to us, and we will see you here in a couple of weeks for the most stupendous two-night WrestleMania at AT&T Stadium.
My man, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.